So he then went on to say, if this was successfully deployed, you would have a situation where hospitals will run like airports, where people can safely and effectively triage themselves through every facet of the hospital, where capacity can be utilized, appropriately, where luggage isn't lost in the system because it's effectively tracked, and every person gets on the plane that they need to get to safely and effectively from A to B.
Welcome to the Hands-On Business Podcast. Where else are you going to come to get tips, tricks, and advice on growing your business? As you know, what people tend to love about this podcast is that it is a place where you can hear real business leaders discussing systems, methodologies, and strategies that they have used to help them catapult growth in their business. So I'm your podcast host, Hakeem Adebi, and I've grown several small businesses to multi-million-pound enterprises and noticed that there wasn't really a place that focused on where I was, i.e. growing a small business. All of the content that seemed to be out there was about big business and often just a lot of theory and no practical implementable advice, which is exactly why I set up this podcast. So take a listen, enjoy, and start implementing the strategies that you hear on the podcast. Happy listening. So delighted that you could join me today, and welcome to the launch of the Healthcare Export Accelerator. I'm absolutely delighted that over the next 4 days, we're going to be diving into some key strategies to help you scale your medical device business into global markets. Now, just to be clear, these strategies are going to be able to help businesses in every sector, but the examples and case studies that I want to give and focus on are going to be healthcare, because we're both from a healthcare background. And obviously, I'm promoting the Healthcare Expert Accelerator. So obviously, we're going to focus on healthcare. So what I always try to do is not just to give loads and loads of theory, but to give some points and advice and then use real life examples to illustrate the point. And that's obviously why Dr. Abdullah is with us today. Obviously, we're kicking off with today with what I consider to be the crucial topic in any business, and that's vision-driven growth. And I've actually subtitled it The Secret to Business Acceleration. And the reason I've subtitled it as that is because I think it's an area that people either, number one, they take too long on with management consultants crafting, frankly, meaningless visions a lot of the time, or number two, often, and especially in small businesses, people don't think it's important. And I've noticed that in healthcare export businesses, the latter, i.e. people not really thinking it's that important, is more often than not the case. And I think it's important to try and keep it very simple so that it's easily understood and actualized. And frankly, in my 25 plus years of experience with healthcare businesses and working in exports, I've found that a strong vision is actually the foundation of any successful growth strategy. And today, we're not only going to discuss why it's important, which I'm hoping that people will understand anyway, but we're going to discuss why it's important. But hopefully, you'll also go away with some things that you can do today to start to craft or refine your own vision. So I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Abdullah Sharif, who is a leader who's driven growth and innovation in the healthcare sector for years. He's the MD of MSD in Singapore, Malaysia, and Brunei. And he's obviously here to help us explore how having a clear and compelling vision can accelerate business growth. So welcome, Dr. Abdullah Sharif. And I think you prefer to be called Sharif?
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. My pleasure. So it just so happens, actually, coincidentally, well, actually not really that coincidentally, that the first module of the Healthcare Export Accelerator that we're to launch today is on vision. And hopefully, after this short session, you'll see why. It's probably pretty obvious because it focuses on a vision, that first module, that drives action specifically. It's not about having a vision for vision's sake. It drives action and aligned with your international growth goals. Now, I'm a very simple person. Me and Dr. Abdullah were just talking before, and we try to be as simple as possible. And I like what Chris Hurst said in his book, and his book's entitled No Bullshit Leadership. And he says that leadership is the art of getting from here, where you are now, to there. And getting there, the there is your vision. And if that's the case, then the vision is critical because it should affect everything in between here to there, i.e. all of the activities and the actions. And the reason why you really want to keep the vision simple, and that's why I talked about having consultants coming in and overcomplicating it. But the reason why you want to keep it simple is because if it's done right, it helps engage people. It helps them make the right decisions. It helps them prioritize correctly. And it also helps people stay motivated. And I think you'd agree that if you could actually just do one of those things, never mind all of those things, in your business, it would be quite useful and probably make quite a significant change. So on that note, let's jump into some of the questions with Sharif. And I want to just firstly talk about the power of vision in driving growth. So what we're going to do is probably take an example, a case study, and then go through that case study to see how vision affected lots of different aspects within that case study. So, Sharif, could you start by sharing an example from your career or a company you've worked in where a clear vision directly led to significant business growth? You know, what were the key factors in that success, and what steps should entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders who are listening today take to ensure their vision is actively driving their own growth?
It's a great question, and thank you so much for this opportunity to share this. And actually, before I jump in, this Accelerator is such an interesting concept and actually a really pioneering way to build practical insights for entrepreneurs to build from. So I congratulate you and all your colleagues involved in helping to bring this to reality. I'm really excited to see where it goes. So coming back to the question of vision. So let's go back a few years ago. I used to work in one of the world's leading medical technology companies, and there was an outstanding leader in that company who I happened to work alongside. He came back from a trip where he was experiencing the various challenges that healthcare faced. So think about it. Every hospital around the world, you hear the same challenge. And if you're in the UK, you hear the same challenge with the NHS today. There's capacity constraints. There are long waiting lists. There are queues outside a hospital. There's not enough doctors. Technology, diagnostics are overloaded. So this brilliant individual had this vision for how can we deploy sophisticated yet simple technology that enables us to coordinate and optimize capacity in a hospital in the same way as air traffic control coordinates capacity at an airport. Because without air traffic control in an airport, you would have absolute chaos. What comes in, what goes out, you just couldn't manage that. Yet in a hospital, operationally, people are blind. So he set out to say, one, how could we use technology to do it? And secondly, I want to build a company, or I want to build the organization that provides that technology in a way that seamlessly embeds with how hospitals operate and helps empower hospitals to achieve excellence. So started the journey of the development of what was eventually called command center technology. And his vision was very clear. A technology that allows hospitals to be able to optimize flow and leverage the collective capacity that they had to deliver outstanding care for the patients they seek to serve. Right? That is as crisp as he had it, right? And he worked that through. So for me, the first step was starting from the foundation of the job to be done, the problem that he was trying to solve. He didn't just sit down in a room and make up a random thing. He recognized that there were problems in the ecosystem that could be solved through a technological breakthrough, and he had the ability and the capacity to come up with said technology. So that was the first bit of the articulation of the vision. Secondly, envisioning what the world will be if he solved it. So he then went on to say, if this was successfully deployed, you would have a situation where hospitals will run like airports, where people can safely and effectively triage themselves through every facet of the hospital, where capacity can be utilized, appropriately, where luggage isn't lost in the system because it's effectively tracked, and every person gets on the plane that they need to get to safely and effectively from A to B. So he was very clear about what that vision in life would be. And then thirdly, he was also very realistic about what would need to be true for the vision to translate into practical reality. So he needed a set of technology that was foundational, sophisticated, yet simple, and adaptive into the context of that particular health system. And with that, he was able to get others around him, raise the seed capital needed within the company, work with the right partners, and build what has now become an incredible ecosystem of solutions around the world, which we'll come to in a second. So that for me is why vision is important. Nobody would have understood what he was talking about if he wasn't really clear about what it could be. But equally, if he wasn't visionary about how the world will be different with his technology in there, it would have just been another passing fad. Right? And that's the difference between people who just transact and who build for the future. When you build for the future, you envision what that future could be, and then you take practical steps to make it happen.
Yeah, no, and I think that if you look at businesses around the world, or top quality businesses around the world, generally, I'm not going to say always, because there's lots of examples. Well, there's a few examples where they're not, but they'll have a very clear vision, and the most successful ones are the ones that can articulate that vision well. So in terms of just on that small part of what we've just looked at in terms of the case study, then I would ask everybody on the call to ask yourselves, have you got a simple vision that everybody is aware of? And we're going to come on to this a bit later, but that everybody is aware of, because that's the key point. It's not just about you having a vision and no one knows about in your business. And then number two, does your vision clearly communicate what you want to achieve? And is it guiding your daily business decisions? Which then leads me on to the next question that I wanted to ask about, which is about that, the role of vision and guiding vision in decision making. Because for me, the key purpose of a vision is, does it make the boat go faster? And I want to digress slightly here, because some of you will have heard of does it make the boat go faster? Some might not. It's now a company, actually. And it's basically set up by, I think it's the 2000 rowers from the Olympics. And basically they had a vision in 1996, because they didn't win the Olympics. They came quite far behind. And their vision was, we want to win the Olympics in the year 2000. So they then built like this mantra around it, and it was, does it make the boat go faster? And basically what they were saying was, anything that makes the boat go faster will allow us to achieve our vision. And that's what I was talking about, the actions in between. So they use that on a daily basis to guide their decisions, i.e., they say, going to the pub on a Friday evening doesn't make the boat go faster. So they didn't do it. However, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and rowing on a freezing cold lake does make the boat go faster. So they did it. And that really, to me, distills why a vision is so important. And it also shows that your vision doesn't have to be that complex, because their vision was just, we want to win the Olympics in 2000. But then everything they did from that point was, does it make the boat go faster? So based on that and the decision making, can you just go through, extend out that example you're giving us to talk about, how it helped in terms of enacting decisions and making the right decisions at the right time?
So in the spirit of digression, let me digress a bit and I'll come back to that example. So I love the way you describe that. Does it help the boat go faster example? I use that in my organization every day. So I'm responsible for an organization that has the incredible privilege of helping to make available the world's leading medicines and vaccines for the populations of the 3 countries that I have the opportunity to serve. And that's my job. That's what I see my job as, to have the best possible medicines available for the populations that I have the privilege of serving. And it's a huge responsibility. So the vision for our company, our organization in these 3 markets, is to be the single most trusted biopharmaceutical company in these countries. And so every choice we make is exactly down to that. Every resource we allocate, every activity that we undertake, every product that we bring in, every engagement with a customer, does this reinforce our position as the single most trusted biopharmaceutical company? If it's yes, we move it forward. If it's not, we don't. And we sit down and ask ourselves, what does a trusted company do? What does a trusted company look like? How does a trusted company market? How does a trusted company go into contracts? How does a trusted company discuss, availability and sustainability of the products in the market? So I think having that clarity of principle is absolutely vital. And that's what this individual did exceptionally well. So once they formed their vision, the next most important thing was finding a set of customers who are aligned with who he can successfully serve in line with the visions as set out. And he focused very intently, not on 1 million customers, but on 2. And with those 2 customers worked intimately to build the technological solution needed to solve their challenge and therefore bring the vision to life. And through that process, they were testing and validating whether that vision was real. So the first time they sat together, he didn't sit together going, I've got this technology, I'm going to push it in your face. No, he sat down going, okay, if we want to build a hospital system that operates as effectively, if not better, than an airport, how do you operate today? Where are the challenges and bottlenecks in your system? And which of those challenges can I digitize? Working backwards from that, and again, the exam question was the same. I want to build a hospital working as effectively, if not more, than a hospital does, and embedded and built out the digital technologies, which gave birth to what was described as a command center. And those technological solutions, the command centers, are now embedded within the hospitals. In those 2 initial customers, they weren't even sure what they were building initially. What they were very sure of is what they were trying to solve, right? So that's the difference. People should not mistake a vision with a product. 2 different things. When you have a vision and you have a focus for the kind of thing you're looking to address, oftentimes you might have to pivot on your product over time. Because the first product you come up with is unlikely to be the best product for solving that challenge. But as you work with customers, you learn more with your customers, the more effective your product becomes in addressing that, so long as you're consistent with the vision that you're looking to achieve over time. The other part of the vision is you form a vision with the best information that you have available. I have also seen situations where people have had to pivot their vision, right? And that could be in pivoting the actual vision itself or the way the vision is solved in reality, because ultimately your vision exists within a context. What does not happen, though, is multiple visions at once. That is a recipe for chaos. So this individual worked with 2 customers, built out very specific solutions that completely transformed how this customer's operated and taught him a lot about not just the technology, but the team needed, the contracting structure that was most effective, the kind of impact that it would have in the customer's organization to the extent beyond what it is that he imagined. And this was hard. It was incredible hard work. Many months of going through failing, rebuilding, partnering, but with the right kind of intent. The customers also aligned on the overall vision for what this was trying to do. And so that I think is a very important part about not just the decision-making guided the individual to which customers do I go for. Because with this kind of vision, there is a specific type of customer that I would look to work with. And therefore, there is also a type of customer that I'm not going to work with. And that's okay. You have to be choiceful about strategy. And this is what this person did incredibly well as he was building up the organization. And as you continue with that, and as you drive excellence, you celebrate those micro wins and you build foundational capability on the back of that. Because what you then start to realize is it's not just about you. You then have 1, 2, 10, 20, 50 people, 100 people who choose to come and work with you because they see something about what it is that you're doing. So they have to be able to see not just the vision, but the translation of that vision into impact in ways that are real and tangible. Absolutely vital. Absolutely vital. And by the way, they will see it the moment there's a disconnect. The moment they can sense that, look, this is a ship that is being opportunistic in what it's pursuing without clarity of intent or purpose, people will vote with their feet. So stay disciplined, stay focused, and you continue to build forward. And that is what this individual did that took him from an idea to first 2 customers to now over 30 partners within the US alone and internationally, which we'll come to in a second. But fundamentally, he has helped usher in a complete reimagination of what it means to run a hospital. From what started as a simple articulation of a vision that a hospital could be run better. I have huge admiration for what he's done.
Yeah, no, and I think that's an excellent example because they're making the decisions, and I think it brings in a lot of other things about tying other people and the people in the organisation. And you were talking about it from a hospital concept. So number one that pulled out there was about the pivoting, because a lot of people think that you've got a vision and it's fixed. You can't change that vision. Lots of companies, if you look at Tesla's vision 10 years ago, it's different than their vision now. It's still in the same ballpark, but it's a different vision because they've achieved what they wanted to do in the first instance. And remember, it's about getting there. Once you're there, you want to pivot, or something happens and you want to pivot. And then the other thing that you said that I think is very noteworthy is about the filtering out lots of people think that actually it's always about filtering how many more people can get in. It's just as important to know who you don't want to work with, who isn't the right sort of customer. And that is perfectly articulated when you're talking about healthcare exports, because you need to know which markets you're going to. And that's, again, the point of having a vision, because when you've got a vision for your global expansion, then you know what markets are important and what markets aren't. You're not just going to go to every single market. And I think that attracting of the right people is so important, because you look at some businesses which have good visions, and again, this comes to healthcare export. If you're looking for a partner in other markets, then if you've got the right vision, it's articulated, people understand it, you'll start attracting people rather than you having to search for partners, and you'll attract the right partner. So my advice to anyone who's watching this from that specific thing is, if you haven't already started to use your vision to filter for decision making, then you need to start doing that. Obviously, the first thing is making sure you've got the right vision, but then, it then allows you that if a choice doesn't align with the vision you have, likely it's not the right move. But again, as I said, it means that you have to have an effective vision in the first place, which is why obviously I started with that vision. So moving on from that, and then, we're talking about global expansion. So let me go to the global expansion. So when you were expanding globally, you gave a little bit of a insight there. It requires a clear vision to stay competitive. So what's the real roles that you see in when you try to expand globally that vision has to really drive your business forward?
One of the hardest things that you will do as an entrepreneur is choose, because you will not have infinite resource or infinite time. Even if you had infinite cash, you will not have infinite time. And so you have to prioritize where you put your resource and where you allocate your focus. International expansion is one of the most important decisions that you will make, because it means that you are diverting resource from a primary market you have started to pursue opportunity in other markets. And that specific moment when you come to that specific choice has to be guided by a very clear understanding and a very clear vision for what it is you're trying to accomplish by export. And of course, I do believe that innovations should go to wherever the opportunity exists for those innovations to flourish. So I do strongly advocate for a connected world and the opportunity to export your innovations. So then the question then becomes, how do you make that choice? Right? That's the choice. So let me go back to my wonderful ex-colleague. One of the things that, back to the foundations, his vision was to be able to build foundational technology that allows a hospital to be run as effectively, if not more, than how our airport runs safely and effectively. So then the question becomes, that works in an environment where he has customers that also aspire to operate at that same level of performance, because ultimately he's not running the hospital, his customers are. He's providing technologies that allow those customers to run effectively. So then when he starts to think about export, one of the wonderful things that he did is that he sat back and he went, okay, which environment around the world has the combination of customers who have large hospital-based facilities that mean that there is significant amount of traffic, who have staffing challenges that means they have to be very disciplined about allocation of doctor and nurse capacity given the challenges that exist within that health system, have the desire and the maturity to translate that desire to operate differently into a willingness to embrace new technology, and have the spending power to be able to be effective customers, not just today, but for the long term, because this is a process of co-creation. So he went from, I can export to 200 countries, to actually my priority focus should be these 5, in line with the vision for what it is that he was trying to accomplish. So this is absolutely vital. And in doing that, he had already then made very, very deliberate choices. Not just these are the 5, but also these are the other 195 I'm not even going to look at least for now. Your next focus then becomes, because ultimately you cannot be there alone. So you then have to figure out how you build your team who are able to not just take your vision, but actually be the evangelists for your vision within these markets that you're now looking to expand to. Because some of these customers, you're not going to be able to see them. It doesn't matter what you do. So he then has his next challenge of, how do I build the next generation of leaders that would be able to significantly drive this And how do I find the right kind of partner, whether distributor or otherwise, within that other market that has the same alignment of my vision, that can represent my product and my service to the quality and the standard that I deserve for it to be, for it to hold, and that will invest alongside me to achieve the significant impact that I know that my product and service can have in that. The wrong choice of either the people or distributor or ecosystem partner could literally drown the business. So what I saw him do is go through these incredibly difficult choices, some of which he got right at the beginning and some of which he got wrong. And I give you a few examples where he got it quite wrong in some of the people that he hired, but it was okay. It's part of the learning process, because what he didn't do too much was dwell on his mistakes. He built on it and he moved on, which allowed him to continue this incredible learning process. The other thing that he did is that as he scaled up on these 5, he was also very clear about what are the things he's going to get hung up on and what are the things he is not going to get hung up on. So he is going to get absolutely hung up on the technology must be outstanding. Every single customer that signs an agreement with him deserves the best. The solutions must be world-class. Every customer that works with him deserves the best. His go-to-market model must have the integrity of his original business, and the ecosystem partners that he work with must be of a certain quality. What he's not hung up on is the specific operating model that he has in that country doesn't have to be the same as the operating model he had in the first country, because he knows that the market ecosystem would be different. So he evolved and changed multiple business models before finding the business model that best suited the market he was expanding to. So this was the thing that I saw him do masterfully over time. That meant that we went from an organization with one person to an organization with 30, 40 people working actively in multiple markets, and a whole range of ecosystem partners, technological distributors in those markets that were carefully selected to consistently deliver the quality of his brand. And that, I think, is absolutely outstanding.
Thank you very much. An absolute excellent example all the way through. And we've probably got about 600 other questions that we could ask you, but I've just been looking at the time. We could probably speak to Sharif for the rest of the day. But because I always like to keep the time, because I know people are working on timeline agenda. So if you've got any questions, if you can start just dropping those in the comments now, and I've seen some of the comments that are coming through, so I'll read some of those out in a minute. But just one thing I wanted to say at this point was that throughout that example, what you saw, what Sharif was articulating was not just having a vision, but actually articulating that vision to ensure team alignment. He was talking in that last example about how it attracts and it enlivens the team. It gets partners, whether distributors or otherwise, to actually be focused on that vision. It allows you to filter out the sort of people that you want to work with, which can help you deliver that vision. And one of the key things I think that I take away from that particular area is about communication and ensuring that you do clearly communicate it regularly and often. Because I remember I once worked in a business where we sat around the table, we were talking about the vision, and I think whether it was me or someone else said, well, we need to be clear on what the vision is. And I don't think anyone in the business is clear. And the CEO at that point said, well, I've got a vision. It's just I haven't articulated it yet. Now, that is a disaster waiting to happen, because if you don't know what the vision is, having it in one person's head is a waste of time. So it should really be part of daily operations. And if it's not currently, then I suggest that's one of the things that you need to do, is make sure that it is part of daily operation. It's part of the decision-making process. It's part of team goals. And one of the things that I've always suggested, and we've done in business, is that you hold regular meetings, and whether they're called vision alignment meetings or whatever you want to call them, to keep people on track, so that you know that you've got time that you're carving out to make sure that you are making the right decisions as a business and you're making them in line with that vision. So just as a quick recap, and thank you, Sharif, for sharing those valuable insights. And someone just asked if the transcript will be available. I'll make that available, don't worry. So just message me if you need the transcript or anything else. We've really heard, I think, today how a clear vision can guide decision making. It can keep you focused during challenges. It can inspire both leadership and teams to take consistent action towards growth. And for me, the key takeaway always is with vision. It's not just a statement on your website. It's, whatever you want to call it, the North Star. I know Marco Rombi's on the call. He calls it a flag that you need to follow. And it should be driving every decision and action in your business. And in the Healthcare Expo Accelerator, we dig deeper into crafting a powerful vision as part of your export strategy to try and achieve the sort of results that Sharif was just talking about. So, and if today's discussion has sparked some ideas for your own business, I encourage you to explore that program and avail yourself of the 60-minute strategic consultation that I'm doing for people, and that'll be completely free. So a huge thanks to Sharif for being with us today. If you didn't already know what the purpose and the critical nature of vision takes in our business, especially when you're trying to grow in exports. And hopefully, if you weren't doing it before, you would now start thinking about doing it. And if you were doing it before, you'll have an opportunity to go and re-look at that vision and make sure that it is driving every part of your business. So thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Sharif. This is about the second or third time I've had Sharif on, and it's always illuminating. So the key things that I take away from there is that you need a clear and compelling vision for business growth. You want to keep it simple. Make sure, number 2, you keep the vision simple. Number 3, align that vision with your daily operations. Number 4, having the clear vision helps you with your decisions. And then number 5, regularly reassess and make sure that you communicate that vision so everyone knows what it is in that business. And I think the way that Sharif went through that case study really, really helped.
And if you want to pick up the show notes, head over to the salesaccelerationformula.com/podcast-show-notes, and you'll be able to subscribe to our mailing list and get show notes for every single episode. And as always, subscribe, like, and share with your friends, colleagues, and anyone else who you think may be interested. But most of all, keep the feedback coming so that we can continue to improve and give you more of what you like. Hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and as I always do. Keep listening and keep growing.